Hey guys, this is Catherine Price, and I apologize for being slacker about our agenda and getting us started this morning. But you know what I was doing?
So we're going to call you Catherine Nero from now on.
I just think it's great that we have live music this time.
Yeah.
Well, I was fiddling while LakeWales was burning, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So why don't y'all you introduce your names this morning on the Three Little Ladies?
Well, I'm Charlene, and mine says vote, vote, vote. And I think that's what we're all about today, reminding people of the election and things related to it. April 1st coming up. You can vote. When can they start? When's the early voting start?
Okay. Let Juanita introduce herself, and we'll just dive right in here about voting.
Yeah. Well, I'm Juanita Swarchuk, and I'm glad we're doing this because there's a lot of information that needs to get out there, and this is such an important vote. I'm anxious to hear the answer to Charlene's question because I didn't look up when is early voting. When is it?
Well, I'm not sure about the early voting. That is a question. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even think about the early voting because usually it's about 8 or 10 days before, and they can usually vote at City Hall because I think we have 2 voting locations. And again, for the next one, maybe I'll make sure that they're usually at Lake Ashton and down at City Hall.
Yeah.
And the early voting is at City Hall, and it's usually about 8 or 10 days prior to the election. But the big deal is that vote by mail is probably going to be going out on Monday, which is March 3rd. So people who are signed up to vote by mail will be getting their ballots in the mail probably this coming week. You can also still sign up to vote by mail if you have not already done so. I called the supervisor of election this morning, and they said that you could call. There are several ways to sign up to vote by mail. But you can do it by March 20th and still vote in this election. After March 20th, you will not be included you will be able to vote in person, either early voting or at the poll, but you will not be able to vote by mail. So there's 3 or 4 ways that you can sign up to vote by mail. You can call the supervisor of elections office at 863-534-5888. You can go to their website, which I believe is pokeelections.gov, and you can do it online. Or if you got that mailer that they sent out a while back, you can fill that paper mailer out and mail it in. Though that takes a lot longer than just calling them or going online. So you can still sign up. And I just wanted to say that last night I was looking at some stats from the election in 2024 last year in April, when Carol Gillespie ran against Danny Krieger. And then the other election was between Brandon Alvarado, Daniel Williams, and I always forget her name.
Oh, Crystal Higgins.
Crystal Higgins. I remembered the Higgins, but I couldn't remember Crystal. Anyway, those 3 were 2 separate elections or 2 separate seats. And I think there was about 2,500 people voted. We have a little over 8,000 people in LakeWales proper that are registered voters. So like only 29% of the voters, something like that, voted in that election. And that small number of people are the ones that are determining who our next city commissioners would be. So we really need to encourage people to be out there voting. And the vote by mail is a really good option. I looked at the last election, it's like 29% of the voters voted. 74% of all the people that were signed up to vote by mail voted. Only 15% of people that were not signed up to vote by mail voted, because when that vote by mail ballot comes, it reminds you got to vote.
And it's easy. It's so much easier than getting in your car and driving off to a voting site.
It doesn't depend on what the weather's like that day or, if something comes up suddenly. Yeah, it's the way to go.
Yeah, and we only have 1 seat that's up for election. That is the mayoral seat. And the two people are our incumbent, Jack Hilligoss, and Curtis Gibson, who is challenging him. He's our previous city commissioner. So
Shall I put up the ballot here briefly?
sure. I need to go let my dog out the back door. She's going to bark. So I'll be right back. Y'all talk for a minute. And Charlene's going to talk also about something that's on the ballot. It's the charter amendment. And that's sort of the most important thing we're talking about today.
Okay. So this ballot is what was approved by the city commission. It's the official ballot. And you can see on your left there is your option of voting for Mr. Gibson or Mr. Hilligoss. On the right is your option for voting yes or no on the amendment. And the amendment reads, this amendment provides that a candidate receive a majority of votes to be elected. That's anybody who's running for city commission. You have to get a majority of votes in order to be elected. If you don't get a majority of votes, then
let's just, you said in the last thing, what constitutes a majority of votes?
51% or more.
No, it's 50% plus one.
Yeah. Okay. 50. Yeah. Right. More than 50% is the way they've put it here in the amendment. So if nobody has that more than 50%, there has to be a runoff. Unfortunately, the amendment does not say that the runoff is being between the top two vote getters, but we all would understand it that way. I hope that is not an omission that would lead to some kind of issue someday, but I doubt it. But anyway, it's very simple. No majority, you have a runoff. That means you have to go out and vote again. So if everybody gets out and votes the first time, maybe we'll get a majority. And of course, this amendment is not applicable in this election because the amendment still has to pass. So it will not be applicable until the next election.
Well, and I don't think that we can stress this too much. Like, what happens if you don't have this amendment to our charter is that theoretically, the more people that you have in the race, you could have someone, if you had 4 people, you could have somebody win with probably 25% of the vote or more, like maybe 26%, if you split the vote even very equally. So, then you have a person who may not be the best person for the job. And I think that in the cities, in the counties, there are different type of places in Florida that have adopted this. And I think that it ensures that the community is happier with their representatives that are in those seats, and that you get a better quality outcome in your government.
Yeah. So the message is find a way to vote, people. Listen to what we're saying here. Ask somebody else. Contact your supervisor of elections, and above all, get out and vote. And while we're talking about the election, I just want to remind everybody about the candidate forum on March the 10th at the Women's Club here in LakeWales. Something has happened to one of us. Juanita has disappeared, and I was getting ready to ask her to give us the address of the Women's Club, but maybe she'll get back down soon and do that. This, both Mr. Gibson and Mr. Hilligoss have been invited to come to the forum. Mr. Gibson has accepted, and it's possible that we have an answer from Hilligoss by now, and I don't know yet. But as of yesterday, we didn't. But it's a great chance, no matter who all's there, for everybody to come out and be prepared with questions. If you don't want to stand up and ask a question, you can write it on a card and turn it in, and somebody else will read it for you, and you can be anonymous if you want. But if you want to get up and speak for yourself and ask a question, you will also have that. at the beginning of the forum, there will be a brief explanation of the amendment, and there will be opportunities for the candidates to give an opening statement and to ask some very particular prepared questions. And then after that, we can all citizens can ask their questions. It's at 5:30. And I'm getting a message here from Juanita saying that she's having some technical difficulties and that we should go on without her. Okay.
Yes.
So I don't remember the exact address of the women's club, but it's right. It's on Park Avenue, very near Scenic Highway, just like 200 feet from Scenic Highway. On that big corner there is the women's club. 5:30, March 10th. Hope to see a lot of folks there.
I was trying to find when early voting would start for the city commission race, and I was not able to find it while you were talking. I know that Juanita said that she was having some technical difficulties, and for us just to go on without her. I know she was having some problems with her computer or something. So we were also wanting to talk just briefly about, sort of you were having some concerns about like what was going on vis-a-vis development and growth in LakeWales. And I know that Juanita had started out talking a little bit about LakeWales Envision, the process that we went through several years ago.
Yes. I think, I think maybe her concern and my concern, probably lots of people's concern with regard to LakeWales Envision, is that they have not passed adequate code enhancements to really make LakeWales Envisioned come to pass. They have not enabled it adequately with code. And if you listen to particularly what Mr. Gibson, Robin Gibson, and Mr. Hilligoss and particularly Keith Thompson say, they just say things like, well, it's all up to the market, or we can't make anything happen. We just go by the rules. What they neglect to say is that they make the rules. And they can change the rules at any time that they want to change them. The comprehensive plan doesn't have to be changed only every 7 years when the mandated updating occurs. They can change it anytime. Yes, it has to go to the state. It has to be run by the state, but the state rarely rejects any comprehensive plan changes that localities send up there. They have the ability to change where industrial is located and where residential is located. They don't have to do what any developer wants done anywhere. They make a plan. That's what the land use plan is all about, a big overall plan for the city, so that industrial should be in one place and residential somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. They can make that happen. They have not done it. They've had 3 years to do it, and they haven't done it.
Well, I saw this, I guess it was a post that this woman had made kind of criticizing the decision that they made to annex and then change the zoning for the ADS plastic pipe plant that's there behind Orange Grove Shopping Center in that area of the city. And it looked like that Jack Hilligoss made the comment that the reason that the 5 city commissioners voted in support of those changes was that it was illegal not to do so. Well, that we were not asking the commission to do anything illegal. Right. We were just asking them to possibly not annex, but also to not change the zoning. That was totally legal for them to do.
That's right. It was a yes or no. They could vote it up or they could vote it down. Right. And they claimed that all they could do was vote it up. Well, obviously they could have said no.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of times they're claiming that they have to do things legally that they do not have to do.
Exactly.
And we need the city commission to be there to protect the way of life for the people that already live here.
Yes.
You know, we're not here to protect the life of, and create a situation where we have more people than we can handle, more growth, more congestion on our roads than we can possibly manage. You know, no, you cannot go like if a particular piece of property is zoned agricultural, one house for every 5 acres or something. We cannot take that away from the developer. However, we do not have to go in, annex, and rezone it to where you can put 20 houses on an acre.
Yes, that's true. And people are not happy about the annexations. What we hear most from the commission about these annexations, oh, if we don't do it, somebody else will do it. We need to get it before somebody else does. Well, that's absurd because that interferes with the overall planning for the county. Every city is involved in what goes on countywide. And the county, they're not happy with what they call land grabs. When they talk about cities doing this, they call it land grabs and hodgepodge annexation. So it's something, and I have to say, when I know some of us have watched these videos that have come out with the interviews of the two candidates by this real estate developer Mendez or real estate salesperson Mendez, and the one I've seen them now. The one that Curtis did, I have to give him credit for saying that he understands that LakeWales envisioned can be influenced and that we can make further changes to the code in order to enable it. And that's important for all of us to think about.
Well, sometimes I like to think about the city as like my house, you know, and we do have a lot of sovereign power over what's going on in our own house. And in a city like this, it's like, it's not all about like just adding more houses. I get one thing that I have concerns about is when you add a lot of houses, particularly houses like they're adding right now that are sort of middle to lower income, you know, families are buying those houses. You have to have jobs to provide for those people in order for them to be able to live without having to commute for miles and miles and miles. And we cannot grow jobs at the rate that we are growing houses. And so at some point, there's going to be this massive disconnect. And there's only so many retirees that can come here. And, you know, and you have this like large cohort of people that are the baby boomers. And as they die off, you know, we're going to have this glut of lower income housing where we cannot provide the jobs for these people. And that's sort of a prescription for disaster.
You know, I heard something interesting on these Mendez interviews. He's a real estate person. He kind of knows what's going on in the city. He made the comment, I was totally surprised about this, that the people who are buying these houses in these new developments that are being built right now, the Hunt Club, the the names of them aren't coming to me, but Leoma's Landings, the people that are buying them, he said, are driving up to 2.5 hours to work, that they all work somewhere else because, and I have to confess, I don't understand this. Why people would live so far away from where they work. Is it because our houses are a little cheaper and don't have CDDs?
Yeah,
for the most part, our homes don't have
they
CDDs.
can't afford housing like in Orlando and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Orlando and Tampa. I suppose he says 2.5 hours. That's a little extreme. I think it must be more like 1.5 hours, but still, that's a lot. And it tells you that
I don't doubt if it's 2.5 because of the amount of traffic. Like when you try to get into Orlando, it's just a solid wall of traffic.
Yeah.
And we're getting sort of to a point of gridlock, which sort of, you know, makes you realize that, you know, there is a certain point where this stuff starts to fall apart. We used to have something called comprehensive planning in the state of Florida, and Governor Rick Scott, our U.S. Senator now, he pretty much went in and changed the laws and the rules to where, locally you control this stuff. And I know Keith Thompson likes to tout that is just the best way to have it. But the problem is, a lot of times small cities like this, they do not always see big picture stuff. They're not thinking about regional water. They're not thinking about this, the fact that, what do they say? The right, like everything's connected, and you have to go through Dundee, Lake Hamilton, Haines City to get to I-4, to get to Orlando. And all we're looking at is maybe that we might get some impact fees from some new development. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of this residential development, you get this, it's kind of like a drug. I look at it like that, sort of like almost like you're addicted to this. You get this big influx of cash from the initial impact fees. And then at some point, you have to maintain the infrastructure. You have to take care of the water lines. You've got to take care of the roads. You got to make sure that kids have a school to go to, and that people can actually drive down the road and they're not just completely gridlocked on the roads. Then the amount of money they're paying in taxes is not enough to pay for that development. So then we need another influx of impact fees.
Yeah. And you were talking about being like a drug, and it really is. I think that the whole world is addicted to what they call economic growth. And growth for growth's sake is not people friendly.
No.
It's what is paving over the planet. It's what's driving climate change. And we need to think differently than just growth for growth's sake. We need to concentrate on quality instead of quantity. There's probably every city, including ours, needs to have an in-depth discussion with its citizens about what's important to them, that gives them greater guidance in terms of what they approve and what they don't approve. And so that I know that Curtis Gibson mentioned that he wanted to have town halls. I think town halls would be a great help in terms of discussing some of these problems with the citizens, because as we all know, what goes on a city commission is not genuine civic dialogue. It's just people talking past each other. And there's never any other kind of situation in which people can have dialogue with their commissioners, a town hall. And there are maybe other things beside town halls, but we're desperately in need of genuine dialogue with our commissioners.
Like there's things like our city parks, that are being heavily used by the citizens and by visitors to the city of LakeWales. I walk a lot around the lake here because I have dogs and I like to exercise. And so I meet all of these people that are using our city park, and like the trash cans down there are abysmal. And it's like, some of the infrastructure in the children's play areas can be very deteriorated, and yet it's being heavily used by the community. And I know my husband is one of my pet peeves. Here's my pet peeve. David has been on the tree committee for over 2 or 3 years, the chair of the tree committee, yet they go down and they cut trees and they do all this stuff, and they do not consult him. And he's probably one of the foremost experts on tree maintenance in this part of the state of Florida. So, we need to have more dialogue between the citizens and the staff and the city commission, because in some ways they're totally missing the mark on what means a quality city to live in. And by the way, when people think that they have a quality place to live, that kind of stuff is a heavy driver for good, solid economic growth and development.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm getting a little worried about our friend Juanita. She
Well,
hasn't.
she texts me that she may be having some problems with her internet and that we should just continue without her. So she's been really busy. I think that her technical problems have sort of come up. And I don't think we have a whole lot more to talk about today. I think
Maybe we should cut it a little shorter today because
Yeah.
she's not with us anymore.
Yeah, and I think that the main thing that we want to get across to people is that they need to vote, whether they're doing it by mail, which is a really good way. I love voting by mail, and I just wanted to say something here. You know, the state of Florida has changed a lot of the rules about vote by mail, and a lot of people think they're signed up to vote by mail right now, and they're not because they're making people sign up much more frequently. So you need to at least call the supervisor of election and make sure that you've been signed up. And it's a great way to remind you about these sort of smaller down ballot races that are actually very, very important to our quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, Catherine, last time we talked a good bit about the dark money stuff. Did you want to say any final few words about that dark money issue? Or
I think it's really important for people to know that our elections now are being heavily impacted by money that is probably being driven by big development and a lot of these people, these developers that want to come in and take advantage of our cheap land and stuff. And you know, it used to be that elections for sending out a few flyers, making some phone calls was adequate. And, you know, for $1,000, $2,000, a person could run a credible city commission election. Now, I would say that Jack Hillicox's campaign, there's been $15,000 to $20,000 already spent, and maybe more is coming. And it's really hard for someone like Curtis Gibson, who I think is a genuine local candidate, to be able to compete with that. Yeah. And then people wonder why we're getting certain types of development, why certain things are happening in the city. And it's because it's being driven by big money. And if people don't start getting smart to these things on even the city, the county, the state, the national level, you know, we're going to suffer, and we are suffering the consequences of that lack of engagement of people in their democratic process.
And I think the important thing you said last time, one of them was that it's called dark money because we can't really find out exactly who all's doing it, although we're pretty certain it's big development. And when people trace it, that's kind of what they find. And we don't know where it goes either. It's out there
this flyer shows up that says Floridians for Senior Care. Actually, if you go look at that political action committee at the state level on the Division of Election site, it said it's supposed to be spent for healthcare.
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't know why it's being spent in our local election. So, you know,
are you playing a quick little tune as we sit here?
Yeah. I'm going to play a little tune here, and then we're going to go out on a happy note. How's that?
So, great.
All right.
Thank you.
You have a great day, and we'll check on Juanita. I think she's okay. I think she just didn't want to go messing with her internet.
Yeah. Okay. See you soon.
All righty.
Bye.